Hey guys, we are at Covenant for the first time, and today we are building some pack homes, as well as a holding area for some forced laborers. Now this is going to be the beginning of a pack stronghold here, right in the center of the upper part of the map. And my original idea for this build was a guard tower and a couple of pack homes here on the backside of the settlement, but it kind of grew from that. It's still on the backside of the settlement, but a little bit larger than what I was intending. But it ended up looking pretty cool, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So let's get started. So we're going to start things off, as many of my builds do, with a vehicle from Thematic and Practical. And this time we're going to use one of these bombed out buses, and we're going to flip it on its side, and then I want to get it as close as I can to the existing wall, but I don't want it to clip at all. That looks pretty good. Now that we have the bus in place, we're going to go ahead and cover the majority of the surface with wood, and we're going to start out by using one of these shack walls, and we can use the lip here on the roof of the bus as a guide, and we just want to butt it right up against that lip. Now that we have the lower portion done, we can go ahead and cover the top, and for that we're going to use some of these quarter boards. Now I've shown this technique off before, but basically we just want to get the quarter boards here as close as we can to the bus without clipping through, and you just want to line it up so it's more or less straight. And then once the boards are in place, you can just snap the rest of them to that, and I'm going to go ahead and cover up most of the surface on the roof here. And then we can just use Place Everywhere to trim it back. And here we go with Place Everywhere. We're just going to inch these boards back so they're not clipping with any of the pieces that stick off the bus. And then just adjust it if it gets out of alignment. And then we just continue along with the rest of the boards. And as you can see, those floorboards do stick off the edge there, but we can go ahead and use the lip and just line up some of these balcony railings just to cover up that gap. And we just want to get it nice and close, and again, we want to avoid clipping with the bus too much. And here I'm just going to change up the railings a little bit just so it doesn't look too boring, and we're going to use these more traditional looking railings. Just line it up just so it's not clipping with the floorboards there. And then it wasn't quite long enough, so we can actually just glitch a second railing of the exact same type right into it. And when we're done, it should look like one piece. Nice. I really like using these railings from Thematic and Practical in the Vendor tab. And since there's no floorboards here, it's alright if you can see through it a little bit. And we'll just change up that texture. Nice. Now that the front side of the bus is mostly finished, we can start building a structure on top. And so I'm going to change it up a little bit and use one of these metal shack walls. And I'm just going to lower it down to cover up the gap on the backside. Now with the first wall in place, I can just snap a second wall into the first one, just so that when we attach a roof, it's not going to be too short. But since we went ahead and used Place Everywhere to inch the wall forward a little bit, we're going to have to do the same with this second wall. But when we're done, it should look all like one piece. Nice. Since we made the floor an odd shape, the wall doesn't quite cover all the way to the edge, so we can just take one of these half shack walls and just glitch it on into place just to extend that out. That looks pretty good. And just like we did with the floor, we can do the same thing with the roof, just to make it all one piece. We just snap it on into place, and then Place Everywhere can just inch it on back. And I'm just trying to make it even with the edge of the wall there. Well, that takes a little while, doesn't it? There we go. Now, of course, you're going to have to slide it back just a little bit. And now to add the shack pillar, just so we have some support for the roof. Otherwise it would just look off. So I'm just trying to glitch it into the roof, but also make it look attached to that wood beam there. And now to finish off the shack, we'll throw on some of these railings here, and I'll just lower it down with place everywhere just to make it look a little bit more interesting. And to finish off the back side, we're going to use some of these balcony railings just to close up any gaps. You're probably never going to see it, but it still bothers me that they're there. Now we're back to thematic and practical, just to close off that gap and also make the small gap in between the two metal walls a little bit less obvious. Just want to glitch it in so it looks attached to everything. Now there's a little bit of a gap in between the two sets of floorboards here, so we can just build a little bridge with these plyboards. And you can see just glitching them on into place, but there's a little bit of a height difference between the two sets of floorboards, and I thought I could make up that difference with the plywood, but I really can't, so we're gonna have to do something a little bit more drastic. And drastic might have been a little too far. We're just gonna use place everywhere to lower down those other floorboards there, just making sure it's not clipping through too much. And now that we have the one lowered, we're just gonna lower the rest of these boards here, or at least most of them, and then also inch it back from clipping with the door. I hadn't noticed that before. Double checking again. Still looks pretty good. So now we can take these plyboards here and I can just get rid of the extra layers I put in. And they should be at about the right height. Nice. Back down to the front of the structure, we're going to go ahead and build some small holding cells. And we're just going to get these floorboards close to the bus, and they actually don't have to make contact with the bus. We're actually going to put some walls up and whatnot, so you're not actually going to be able to see that connection. But once the first one's in place, the others just snap on in. Now we are going to have to fine-tune the placement a little bit, just because the bus is a little curved. So we just go back one by one and just move them nice and close, but not quite touching. Nice. Now for the front of the cells, we're going to go ahead and use some of the chain link here. I really like the rusted chain link fence. It should be fairly plentiful for, scavengers to find. And it just looks really cool, especially with the rest of this junky build. Now for the sides of the cells, we're going to use some of these shack walls from the Homemaker tab. They just fit in really well. And you can actually just snap them to the floorboards and then just use place everywhere to inch it down so it creates the wall for the lower and the upper cells. And I just want to get it even with the top of the chain link there. Now for the roof of the cells, I of course had to do it the hard way, and I took one of those double-decker shack floors and just snapped some of these quarter boards to them, which does work, but you can just use place everywhere to manually place it in, and it probably would have gone a little bit faster. Since I have to use place everywhere anyway to get the fine-tuning in place. That looks pretty good. Now I want this upper cell to be a little bit wider. I'm just not sure I can fit a settler in there. And you can see, if you're not careful with place everywhere, you will move stuff that you don't intend to, but you can just slide it on back, so it's not that big of a deal. That looks pretty good. Now for the divider between this cell and the one to the left of it, we're just going to use one of these balcony railings here. And we just want to get that in place, and then we can lower the ceiling a little bit. And since we glitched two together, we're going to have to lower both of the boards. I think that'll fit a settler inside. Nice. Now for the divider on the lower cell, we're just going to use one of these shack walls and just glitch that on into place. Back to the upper level, we're going to use one of these shack wall and roof combos and just snap that to the floorboards. And then we can use place everywhere, of course, to inch it back to get it more or less even with the end of the bus there. I do want there to be a little bit of a gap. That looks good. And we'll just adjust the side to side there. Nice. Now we still have a little bit of a gap in between the floorboards and the side of the bus there, so we're going to do something a little bit different and use one of these ply boards, and we're just going to use place everywhere to change the angle of it and then shrink it down slightly just so we can fit it in there. And you can see I don't quite have the angle right there yet. We just adjust that a little bit and it should slot right into place. There we go. Nice. And now, just to make it look like it's actually supported up there, we're going to take one of these balcony railings and we're just going to glitch that into place so it looks like some of those boards are nailed to the plywood. But having it facing that way around just looks off, so we can just flip it around the other way, just so it has the one support beam showing through. And now we need to add some pillars to support this end that's hanging off the bus. So we can just grab these wood pillars from the Homemaker tab. They work really well for this kind of stuff. And we just want to glitch that on into place, all the way to the top there. Nice. And now we can take a second one and just glitch it into the bottom so it makes contact with the ground. For the back wall, we're just going to take some of these small shack walls from Thematic and Practical, and we're just going to glitch them into place so it looks like it's attached to the top as well as kind of woven in between the bus and the wood. And then we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing just a little bit further down to cover up the gap in between the floorboards and the bus. Nice. Now that first wall wasn't quite long enough, so we can just glitch a second wall underneath it. Just want to make sure we get the height right. We don't want it to stick out too much because they're supposed to look like they're attached. To further hide that seam, we can use one of these window boards from a mod called Windows and Floorboards. And I'll go ahead and link all of the mods I use in a Google Doc in the description. But we just want to put that down, and then we can use place everywhere to just inch it on over. Now for the back wall, we're going to go ahead and use one of these junk walls from a mod called Homemaker, and we're just going to go ahead and glitch that in between the two pillars we placed down earlier. Nice. And now for the roof, we're going to go ahead and use more floorboards. This way we can have a gap in the roof so we can place a ladder so we can get up there. So we just want to snap them all into place. And now we can go back to place everywhere and just inch them down to the correct height. Now that we have the roof done, we have a guide for where we can place the walls. So we're going to go in and grab some of these shack walls from Thematic and Practical and just go ahead and glitch those on into place. And I just want to get it nice and close to the existing wall there. Now as you can see, the wall isn't quite long enough to make it all the way to the edge of the roof there. So we can just take a second wall and just glitch that into place. We just set it down and then use place everywhere to inch it on over to the correct width. Well, it really has gotten to the point where I don't think I could build without place everywhere anymore. Now to help cover the gap in between the wall and the roof, we're going to go ahead and take one of these balcony railings and just glitch that on into place just to cover up any gap that might be there. We just want to get it so that top of the wall doesn't clip through at all. Now to cover up any gaps that are still left, we can go ahead and grab one of these door barricades that comes from that same mod with the window boards and just glitch them on into place. And you can see there's still a little bit of a gap there, and we'll just grab another window board and just go ahead and slot that on in and then just adjust it with place everywhere. And you can see there it still has a little bit of a gap, so we can just push it out a little bit. Looks like I left one seam there, and this window board should cover that up. Now it's a little cramped for some stairs, so we can take one of these metal ladders from the Homemaker tab, and we're just going to go ahead and slot that into place, just so we have a way to get to the roof. Just want to get it so it's not clipping through too much. No, it doesn't look too bad. Now with the main structure complete, we can go ahead and close off this little area, and we're just going to build a really simple junk wall. And we'll just take one of these large shack walls here and just glitch it on into the pillar that we placed down earlier. And the ground's a little curved, so it's not going to match up exactly, but we can get it pretty close. And now we're going to go ahead and grab another junk wall. And this time we'll go with the corrugated steel just to change up the texture a little bit. And then we'll just go ahead and glitch them on together. Nice. Back to thematic and practical, just to close off this junk wall we built here. And we're just going to go ahead and glitch that in to the existing wall. But try to keep it from glitching in with that little mound there to the left. Just a matter of getting the angle right. Nice. And then we'll just add another pillar here just to make it look complete. And we'll go ahead and make the height of that a little bit taller than the other one, just to make it look a little extra junky. Now that the opposite side is closed off, we can create a little entryway. And we're going to use one of these junk walls with the barbed wire on it. And we're just going to go ahead and place that up against the existing concrete wall there. For the other side of the entryway, I'm just going to take a large shack wall from Thematic and Practical and just put it at a weird angle. Just makes it look a little bit more interesting to look at. Now you can see here it takes me a little bit of time. It's kind of finicky. I have to keep adjusting what axis I'm rotating and taking a look back to make sure it's leaning correctly. I want to get it so it's buried in the earth and leaning towards that mound. Now the cells we created earlier I figured would be mostly for punishment, so we're going to need a slightly larger holding cell for any workers that are behaving. So we're going to go back to the chain link, and we can actually just glitch that into the junk wall we made earlier, and that'll create a nice little makeshift cell. Now the doorway for the cell isn't quite wide enough to hit that junk fence there, so we're going to take one of these shack walls and just glitch it into place, but I want the bits that stick off to go around the fence. Now because this cell is an odd shape, we're going to go back to the floorboards and use that for the roof. So we're just going to go ahead and place this one board down, and then we can snap the other boards to it. Now that we have all the floorboards snapped on in, we can just use place everywhere and rotate them to make the correct shape. Now it's okay if there are some gaps. You can go ahead and cover those up with plyboards, or you could just leave them open like I'm going to do, so they have a little bit of a leaky cell. You just want to rotate them all the way around till you make the shape that you want. As you can see, the shape I made isn't perfect, but it does look really junky. Of course, that means I'm going to have to support it with another pillar here. Looking pretty good. And just like before, we're going to use some of these window boards just to cover up the back part of this cell here. And it also breaks up the textures a little bit. It just adds to the junky feel. You guys probably know how much I love junky builds. Now we're just going to increase the height of some of these walls here. And we're going to start off with one of these balcony railings. We just want to glitch that into place so it looks attached. Now for the other side there, we're just going to take some sandbags, and we just want to place those down. And it's okay if there's a little bit of a gap there. We can glitch some more sandbags in place. The great thing about the sandbags is when you glitch two of those walls together, it looks very natural. Nice. Now when we built this wall earlier, we did leave a little bit of a gap in between the wall and the ground, so I can just take a second wall here and just glitch it underneath. Now to make this part of the wall taller, I'm going to use some of these barbed wire fences. It comes from a mod called Sandbag Fortifications. I just downloaded it and it's awesome. Now with the barbed wire in place, we can just take some shack columns and just cover up the ends that stick through the wall there. We've been jumping around quite a bit today, and we're back at the entrance. And now we're going to build a little guard station using the same technique we've been using all day, and taking a quarter board, getting it into the right height, and then snapping more boards to it. And now we just snap the boards on in place, and then we use place everywhere to just inch them together. Now for the side railing, we can just take one of these small shack walls and just glitch that on into the floor. It'll act as a support for the flooring, as well as just a way to protect the guard from the side. And then we can just use this junk wall as a height marker. Now we can build a little ramp to get up to this guard station, and we'll just use a plyboard and place everywhere to just change the angle of it so settlers can actually walk up it. It's a little finagling here to get it in the right place, but I do eventually get it. Just a matter of moving the angle and then inching it towards the platform there. And I think that looks pretty good. Nice. Now for the final bit we're going to build today, we just need to create a flooring for the house we're building inside the bus. And so I'm just going to take some floorboards and line it up with the edge of the bus there. With that first board in place, we just snap the rest on in. And now we can add a support, and we'll use a cinder block here to just support this first board. That looks pretty good. Of course, we're going to need a way up there, so we can grab another cinder block. And each cinder block is about the same height as a vanilla stair. So we just need to glitch that on in, and we should be good to go. Here we are at the main guard tower. Has a very nice junky look to it. Fairly imposing as well. I really like that barbed wire on top of that fence there. Not only does it add to the height, but it, I don't know, makes it feel a little more imposing as well. Plus it matches the rest of the Covenant that has that barbed wire running along that fence. Brings us to the dirt mound, where we have a little warning that this is pack territory. Looks like a mannequin and some targets in the bed there. Tied up and face down. That can't be too comfortable. Good thing it's just a mannequin. We have a pack mannequin and a gnome keeping an eye out on things. Of course, we have some raider cages spread amongst the trees here. Really hammers home the fact that these guys traffic in forced laborers. I'd steer clear if I were you. That brings us to a little eating area. Have a fire, looks like some meat ready to be roasted. A cooler there as well. And that brings us to the main entrance. More barbed wire. A little junk wall there. Really good contrast with the nice crisp walls of the existing settlement. Let's take a closer look, shall we? Now over here, looks like there's a fridge. It's been repurposed to hold ammo and chems. Now if we head up the guard station here, has a decent view. Of course, we have more alcohol and chems there. Looks like a little bit of ammo as well. Blood pack, just in case he gets injured. Of course, there's a random car, why not? Now, over here, looks like we have one of those preservation tubes rigged up to some sort of power source. Let's take a look inside. give it some power first. Oh, looks like they forgot about that guy. Poor bastard. That brings us to the small holding cells we built earlier, with the turret keeping an eye on things. Oh, looks like there's a bear in that one. Wonder what he did. Yeah, she doesn't look too happy either. I cannot find where that dog went. I'm gonna have to catch a new one. Looks like we have some fresh remains, as well as some old remains. These guys don't clean up after themselves too well. Now over here we have a butcher station next to a water barrel there. Looks like some human remains on there. These guys might be cannibals. Does not bode well for you, buddy. Doesn't look like he's in a very good place. It's gonna be a rough day, man. Now over here we have a little cooking area, a little bit of storage as well. We get a decent look at the rest of the settlement there, or at least this part of it. Now let's take a look inside, see what we have there. I really like this entryway here. No door, but the pillars frame it really nicely. You can see I added a little bit of support with the sandbags there. Now if we head on up the stair here, we can see some tools laid out. Looks like some chemicals as well. Now heading on over this way, looks like we have some more remains, Raider leathers, and a little chem manufacturing. I mean, they are raiders after all. And a little alcove in the back with the elevated bed. I really like the way that looks. I think that turned out much better than I thought it would. Now let's head upstairs and see what we have. Looks like a little living room. Some alcohol and chems laid out. Looks like shock collars there on the table as well. I really love the pack furniture. That's probably my favorite couch in the whole game. And a really nice view as well. You can see who's coming and going out of the entrance there, as well as keeping an eye on that larger cell. And over on this side we have another sleeping area. Looks like he has some meat laid out to dry, or I guess hanging out to dry. More shock collars and some handcuffs on that table. Really want to make sure the prisoners don't go anywhere. Now let's head upstairs and check out the top of the tower. Got a pretty good view. Got a chair up here for those long hours keeping watch. Looks like some snacks laid out on that crate there. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave me a like. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions about this build or any of my other builds. Subscribe if you want to see when my next video goes live. Should be back here at Covenant, or it could be over at Starlight. I also have a couple other builds in the works, so I'm not quite sure where I'll be. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and until then, enjoy your time in the Commonwealth.